Hello, this is Jeff Allen. We're at the ProZ.com 2012 virtual conference for professional translators. And this session today, this short session is about machine translation, the new generation, questions and answers. And I'm not going to go over all of my background about machine translation. You can read that in my ProZ profile and up on my LinkedIn profile as well, and in the biography about this session. So I'm not going to go over that, but just I have a lot of experience in all different types of systems, of machine translation systems, and in different types of projects, implementing them for different companies and different brands, okay, and different institutes. So that's all I want to say on that, and I want to get down to the to these questions. I really want to reveal a number of things that have just been missing here, and here what are we going to look at here for the goals for this session. So the learning goals, what I hope at this end of this session you'll be able to do is first understand what is really new and what is really different with respect to or with regard to the different types of machine translation systems. And I've given this at the ProZ, a part of this at the ProZ.com virtual, the conference in Paris in 2010, but I kind of updated that a little bit. Then secondly, know what the types of questions asked about an MT project in order to decide to bid on the project or not and participate. That's a really key issue. And the third point is to really recognize when to accept an opportunity, when to work on a project for MT, and when to decline it and not accept it. Okay, so let's come to the role of your participant as a freelance translator or a project manager or something in the machine translation cycle for a project you've been asked to participate in. Well, are you what role are you holding, and how do you influence that? And that's a really key. So, are you an independent freelancer? And that does that mean you have a direct end user translation buyer customer that you're working with? So you have a lot of influence how to work with that project. If they're asking you to use MT, you can talk with them directly, and you can influence that and decide how to do it. Are you a networked freelancer? That means, are you working in a group of freelancers, kind of serving a translation buying customer? Then it's a little bit different because you're all collaborating, all the same level, and the decision process, the decision cycle is going to be co-weighted with either one of you, and that's going to affect how you're going to participate in this. And that's just the weighting, but the decision-making aspect, but actually how the workflow and how you're going to be doing it, because you might have translators, then editors and revisers and people, and you might have all these different people that will be participating in these different workflow aspects, and if you're just network freelancers, that's going to have a different impact. Are you outsourced or insourced freelancer for agencies? That it means, are you doing it from home, or are you actually being insourced and being brought in to work on the company site for a period of time? And are you working basically for a language service provider, an LSP, a translation agency or company, a large one? Medium to large one, and you would just bring a part in to participate in that as to do some execution work of doing the work. So that's going to impact how you can influence this type of project as well and decide if you want to participate or not. Sometimes you don't have a choice. Outsourced or insourced, the last one, for kind of a corporate user buyer. And or buyer MT or translation services are, government bureaus for industry translation buyers and etc. So you insource them for them directly, and sometimes you have some say in it, sometimes not. So it's really important to see who you are and what role you have in the kind of the cycle of using MT and the workflow, to see if you have some say of what how you think it should work or not. Okay, or be and participate. So the next point here is about machine translation types, and I'm specifically aiming this at freelancers. I'm not aiming at the big translation corporate buyers here right now. There's been different sessions on that in the past. But really there are 5 different types of machine translation. Everything said, well, there's just machine translation. It's like saying there's a car, or there's a bicycle, or there's a camera. Well, no, there really are different types of machine translation systems and how they function, how they work. So I just want to mention the 5 and then focus in on the 3 that you need to really think about. So the first one's called example-based machine translation, and all that really is what we the cool name that we've called it for the last 25 years called translation memory. Okay, it's really translation memory is built on the same concept that example-based translation, machine translation did before. Okay, there are some slight differences, but that's really pretty much the same approach. Okay, the second approach is called knowledge-based machine translation. Now, this is not knowledge-based translation. That's another translation companies use that KBT, but this is KBMT, knowledge-based machine translation. Now, knowledge-based machine translation has been around, it was in the 1990s. So example-based machine translation was the 1980s. It became, in the 1990s, became really important for the translation provider community. 1990s was the knowledge-based machine translation, where there were just 2 major systems that were put into place. I'm not going to mention these, but that's just, and they're very, very expensive, and they're very costly, and a lot of time and effort needs to be done up front. Okay, the third one is rule-based machine translation, and this represents the majority of commercial MT providers that we can name easily, and these have been around for 40 years. And there are lots of functionality. It's always changing and more needs coming in and servicing the community of usually mass public users or kind of the general public and corporate buyers. Sometimes freelancers that participate in these types of these systems, but not so much. But the 2 things in the machine, the rule-based, that are really important to see is that you have non-customizable rule-based systems and you have customizable rule-based systems. Okay, the non-customizable are basically all those online translation boxes that you see up on the different sites. Okay, and the customizable rule-based systems are you can have some open source systems that are available, and then you have a lot of paid commercial software, okay, that you buy and install, okay, on your desktop, on your phone, or whatever. Okay. 4th type is statistical machine translation, and this is it's been around for a while too. I was doing a lot of projects on using it back in the mid-1990s, but it has become more important in the past 5 to 7 years. Okay, really the past 5 years, because it's become commercial. Okay, it wasn't just a bunch of research institute geeks that were doing it, which was before, but it really has become now commercially available. And it's even more important because it's become visible, not just commercially available for people to buy, but it's been visible. And Google will translate as an example of one. Those are Microsoft Bing, okay, are the examples of statistical systems. And so there are the non-customizable, the 2 key points here in the statistic base are the non-customizable versions, and like Google Translate and Microsoft Bing, and you can see them up on their portals. Okay, and then there are the customizable versions of statistical systems, and there are some open source versions of those. Moses is an example of that. And then there are the customizable paid commercial MT providers, and just 5 years ago, there's only one. Now there are several that are offering it, and they're offering their own homegrown or made systems, or they're using one of the open source ones and customizing that and making it available. So statistical machine translation has been around for a while, but it's really become more important and over the past 5 to 7 years. Okay, 5 years mainly, with the commercial providers and the visibility of the 2 I mentioned that are non-customizable. And the 5th point is hybrid MT. And hybrid MT is actually taking one of these other systems as a primary focus, a primary approach, and then take another type of the system and make it as a secondary approach. So we can have some statistical-based primary approach, and then putting some rules in, some linguistic rules before, as the secondary approach, and that's called a hybrid system. But a hybrid system can also be taking a rule-based system and then adding some different pre-processing algorithms and processing, or taking some post-processing ones after. Okay. So what I want you to see here, what you need to focus on, is really this box right here, the ones you need to focus on, because you already know translation memory. That's not a problem. And translation memory can be used in collaboration with the MT systems, with the other MT systems we'll see. But really, they're rule-based ones. Some are non-customizable. Some are customizable. There are statistical systems. Some are non-customizable, and some are customizable. Okay. And then there's hybrid MT, which is a mix of flavors of these. So really, you need to understand this in order for us to go to the next step here that we're going to mention in a few minutes about questions to ask when people ask you to participate in an MT project. Okay. So, there is no RFP or RFI form template to request for proposals that exist for MT. I've said this on LinkedIn lists and a number of lists in the past. This is really a missing link in all of how to participate, and so no one knows any questions to ask. And so that's why I have written a number of articles, and that's why even here in this PowerPoint it says multilingual and has the logo Multilingual Magazine, because I read a number of articles for the magazine, and I'm on the editorial board, so I participate a lot in that. And so here I want to reveal some questions about how to participate in projects or not, and when to decide to decline. So that's why we need to know about those MT system differences up front. Okay. So the questions you need to, we're going to group these in a number of different topics. So each topic has a set of questions, and you need to be able to ask this to the person that's asking to participate in the project, or whether bid or something. And these are the questions I'd say you just use them and see how they respond. And we'll come at the end about how they responded. Okay. So the question you ask about the MT system types. First question you should ask is, what type of MT system is used? Okay. Is it SMT, statistics-based, or is it rule-based? Is it a hybrid? In what type of way? Which was primary, which was secondary? Ask the question. And you can even say which brand of the MT is it, which version, system, types of system, and which brand, and what version of that system. Be very specific, just like you are when you say what web browser are you using. I'm using this web browser, this version. Be the same. Say the same here about this, and even which type. Okay. Is this a non-customized machine translation system, or has it been customized based on customers, specific customer data? Okay. Or has it been trained on that, or have been dictionaries or glossaries have been created for that customer data? Okay, test your terminology specifically. Okay. Next set of questions are about MT workflow. So how much was it first trained on data? Well, now how much? So how much data was this, the customer data, I'm talking specific data, was the system trained on? Give some figures. Can they ask that? Can they answer that question? That's going to affect a lot. How many customer-specific dictionary entries are available of the glossaries? What's available? And how much is needed to create more, okay, for more entries? How does the machine translation system interact with translation memory data of previously translated and improved texts? How does that work? Ask the question. Don't assume. Okay. The next one is, what customer-specific guidelines are applied in the MT system? And we'll talk a little bit more about style guides in a minute, but just begin to ask these questions about the workflow. Where do you use these guidelines? At what point in time? Are they implemented in the system already, or do we have to apply them later manually? Okay, so how does this work? Lastly, is on this topic of MT kind of workflow steps, is the source language, has it been written, has the text been written and reviewed with human translation in mind, and or machine translation in mind, and with what tool? And there are different tools to do this that help optimize the text. I'm not going to go with all the brand names. There are different ones. They have different, but you just call it source language text or other language type of writing rules or things. And there are tools to help this. Or is it just done ad hoc or just with a bunch of guides and done manually. Next set of questions about MT post-editing. Now, we do have a panel session about MT post-editing here at the conference this week, and you can attend that. And there's also another special session on MT post-editing in general. Just the questions to ask to these project leads or the person that's asking to participate or you want to respond to a bid, apply to a bid. What are their guidelines? What are their guidelines for post-editing? And is there a style guide to follow or not? I've seen a lot of stuff in the past, and we'll talk about that in the panel a little bit more, but do they have anything or not? Okay. Secondly, what are some examples of must-have post-editing changes? What are the must-have examples? And what are the nice-to-have examples? And what are the do not worry about examples? Okay. So do they, and this is what I call the let go non-post editing. So what are some examples of the must-haves, the nice-to-haves, and what are the ones of the let it go, don't worry about it, of the non-post editing? You don't have to worry about it. And this is where quality comes into place. This is really where this whole question of quality, because most in translation you just do it all really good. Well, in post editing sometimes you let some things go, and this is what are some examples of this. Okay. Next question is, how should post editors act upon the different levels of expected quality? This is always a very fuzzy thing, and this happens in even just regular human professional translation. If you don't have style guides or terminal glossaries to work with it, they've been approved. But it's even more with machine translation, because if we said here, if we have examples of must-have post-editing, examples of non-post-editing, or just don't worry about it, let it go. Well, how should you as a translator or this post-editor interact with levels of expected quality? What is the expected quality? What has been approved to let go or not? And how should you interact with that? Okay? Is there any rules, any guidelines? Next question is, what tools are in place for managing the post-editing grammar changes? Some products do have integrated post-editing features in to make it, they can move words around, you can click on it and move them around. It's really, rather than have to retype. And are there any tools that are for managing the post-editing changes that can do a lot of batch processing of certain things? And a lot of times you're doing it in Word, or you just have to do this in MS Word, okay, Microsoft Word, or some other clone or something. How or what tools are being to handle those grammar changes? Okay. Ask that about the MT post-editing, because this is where your productivity is hit. You got to move things around, to retype. It's just wasted time. What tools or the features are there available? Okay. Next topic here, as we go through the questions. All right. What are those about applying customer-specific terminology? Most MT systems that we've seen in the past, since 1997, up on the internet sites, these non-customized versions, you can't customize it. So you get what you get, and if the word is in the dictionary in the system, then it comes out the same word in the target language. Well, we see the customizable systems do allow you to have to customize it with terminology usually. Okay, customer-specific terminology. So how can you do that? Well, how has the customer-specific terminology been obtained? Okay, where to get it? What was the process? How was it double-checked, and how was it approved? Ask this question. And you have to know if this is the source language terminology and the target language terminology, if there's a glossary that has been, a bilingual glossary that has been provided, or a multilingual glossary. Okay? How does the machine translation system allow for the customer terminology to override, to manual override, or to replace the general vocabulary that is already in the system? If it can't, then you're going to continually get the general word. So like some examples of that word, and when I do MT systems for guitars, I like guitars, okay, I can see here. The word top has a very specific meaning in the guitar vocabulary. It's the face of the guitar. Well, the word top in another language wouldn't come out that way. It'd say maybe a tabletop or something like that, or a top of a bathing suit. So you want to make sure, when I say the guitar top, and it comes out in the machine translation system, I want to make sure that it comes out the guitar top, the equivalent in the target language, okay? And the neck, same thing with the neck of a guitar. You don't want to come out and say it's a human neck, a core, or something, a neck of something else. So, what is the way that the customer-specific or domain-specific terminology of that customer replaces the general vocabulary that's in the system? Key question, you have to ask it. Next point, how do, when you get vocabulary that needs to be changed, the customer-specific vocabulary or terminology might be there, but we need more. And what is the mechanism to capture the terminology from the customer or about the customer, and to improve this improvement feedback loop coming back in to improve the system? And how can that be captured from the machine translation post-editing participants? Is there a way to capture the terminology that way? Think of this like bug fix request in the software program. Well, what's the bug fixing request for terminology, for translation terminology, translated text by the MT post-editing participants? How does that feed back into the system? Is there a way to capture it or not? They need to ask the question, see how they respond. All right. So, some takeaways. I mean, I could spend another, hour going through and answering questions, but I think there's just some real key ones to get you. I want you to prime the pump, as we say in English, to begin priming the pump and asking what are the things you need to ask. Don't participate in an MT project unless you've asked these questions. And this is exactly the same thing that you do when you qualify a translation job. Okay, any human translation job, you ask a bunch of questions. What language, target language, the dialect, source dialect, target dialect, what region, how many words, what you use in translation memory, and which system, what version, what are going to be. You're asking a bunch of questions to go ahead and qualify the job and say, does this need to become databases, text, or is it dynamically? All these questions are the types of questions that you need to be asking for the MT projects. And what's really important here is you need to have a set of questions that you can go ahead and ask. They need to answer, okay? And if they answer quickly with something that is coherent and makes sense, that's probably a project that is worth investigating to go ahead and bid on and continue with. Ask these questions during the bid process, okay? If they can't answer the questions, or they can't answer them in a coherent way or quickly enough for you to be able to make the decision, then that's probably not worth going on, because it's probably a project that will have problems because they haven't thought through this, and it's gonna cost a lot more time and money for everyone to do it. So what I really encourage you to do is get up a set of questions, use these questions, do more, set up more, have these just like you do your own regular translation projects. Ask them and avoid participating in projects that haven't been thought through, because my experience here is that projects that have not been thought through usually fail. Those that are well planned, machine translation projects that are well planned, have glossaries up front, have a cycle, have expectations set, criteria and everything, usually go pretty well. And those that don't, they're usually the ones that don't go well, and they're the ones that everyone talks about. So there are lots of different bids up on the projects, and you see something, go ahead and ask these questions first. And then afterwards you ask the questions, it makes it that we can't complain about MT projects anymore, because if people aren't participating in projects because the people aren't answering the questions, that probably will help us avoid a lot of projects that are prone to disaster. Okay, so hopefully these will help. I've tried to keep this a pretty short presentation here, under 30 minutes. We do have a question and answer time right now, afterwards, I believe a live question and answer time that we can have. You can go ahead and ask me the questions on the chat line, and I'll go ahead and try to answer them. and share what I've got here. But hopefully this will allow you to get going on the types of questions that you can go ahead and participate. Please ask the questions. Don't hesitate. In the end, it's better to ask them up front. Okay? So have a good time and have a good day for that, and we'll have some more discussion chat. Thanks so much.